So I guess you later moved on from the financial services into the aerospace/defense industry. Do you mind just sharing any detail? Obviously, not getting too
Right,
private
right.
details, but any general details you want to share about your experience or how you got in or got introduced or
So I would say the trajectory has more to do with the discipline than the industry. So
okay.
while I was working with Coverall and I had started looking for other opportunities, I had a recruiter reach out to me and say, "Hey, there's this company that's located here, which was literally a 2-minute drive from my house." And she said, they need just someone who can work on Excel and just put some numbers together and all that. And this is how much they're offering to pay. And it was just a little bit less than what I was making at Coverall, and nothing too significant, but just a little bit. But of course, I would save a lot of fuel because I was putting on about 1,500 to 2,000 miles a month on my vehicle in the
Oh my
sales
God.
job. It's sales. You got to go out
Yeah.
there, right?
Makes sense.
And this would mean that I'm putting on maybe 150 miles a month. So I would say there was so much savings over there. I said, you know what? I'm open to this opportunity. So I went and met with the team. This was right before COVID. And I would say, yeah, about 3 months before COVID, I had a phone call with them and they said, great. We like your experience. We like what you can do. They asked me some technical questions about Excel. I answered them and they said, all right, if this was a call on a Monday, they're like, can you start on Wednesday? I said,
Same
I
week.
said, unfortunately, I can't. I have some personal commitment that I need to take care of. Mind you, at this time, I'm already married and I have 2 kids at that point. I said, just, can we start next week? And she says, yeah, and let's start next Tuesday because the person who's going to train you is on PTO on Monday. So when you come back Tuesday, you can come around noon on Tuesday and we'll start. I joined on noon on a Tuesday and I went and I started working and the gentleman who was teaching me, David, the way this guy can work on Excel, I have not seen anyone work with. The stuff he can do is ridiculous. But he's the one who taught me a lot more about Excel and how to work on huge sets of data. He taught me, he really made VLOOKUPs and HLOOKUPs and macros be like second nature, right? I was legitimately scared of pivot tables before I started working with Dave. And now I literally have a pivot table on 90% of the Excel sheets I work. But David taught me Excel and I started compiling the data, getting everything together. And I would say I have an element of OCD where I like things in a certain way. I
Yeah.
would then
Yeah. I
start
get you.
cleaning up these massive Excel sheets, right? And
Yeah.
it was a small company and I was working directly with the director of operations with a dotted line to the director of sales. And the president of the company had an oversight over me. And because this was working with the pricing group, he needed to be involved in it. So 90% of the time I was working directly with the president of the company. So I want to say about 3 weeks in, he comes up to me and he says, "Hey, Sarin, I need you to do some pricing work for me. Would you be open to that?" I said, "I've never done pricing. I don't know what pricing is, but sure." So he gave me the quick SparkNotes version of pricing. And I would say a week later, I was doing pricing. And this is a tire manufacturer that I was working for. And the amount I have learned about tires and different plies and how tires work and what components are important in building the price of a tire is phenomenal. This group knows a lot about tires. And I would say it's just, I started looking at tires differently just because of it, right? I'll go look at the tires of my car and I'll say, all right, the rating on this, no, this is not a safe rating. I need to change it for these highways and stuff. It was a great learning experience, but having been in that environment and then learning how to price and what different elements are and how they play a role on the pricing, it really opened up my mind to, okay, so this is a function of finance. It's essentially figuring out how much do we need to sell? This is our cost. This is our sale price, what our profit margin is and where we're going to land up. So it stayed within finance. It was very interesting to me, right? I stayed with them for about 2 years. And towards the end of my 2 years, I was approached by an oil and gas company that said, "Hey, we're looking for someone to help determine pricing for fuel and what we should sell it at." And I said, you know what? I've never done that. So I wonder what this is going to be like. So I explored the opportunity and they gave me an offer and I moved from Houston to Eldorado, Arkansas, which is about a 6-hour drive. And I remember for the first couple of months, I had company housing. They provided accommodation. They would fly me out there. So I packed up my truck and I just drove. In 6 hours, I drove all by myself. And
Oh, wow.
we,
You drove all the way there.
yeah,
Oh,
it didn't work
man.
because the thing is that because I didn't really have everything set up there, I didn't have a real good setup. It was hard for me because my wife and kids were still in Houston. So I moved in mid to late January. In March is when my wife and kids. And until between January and March, I remember I would drive back to Houston every Thursday. Thursday afternoon, I'd leave work early around 2-ish, drive to Houston 6 hours, and then Sunday afternoon, I'd drive back to Eldorado every week. So
Oh,
it was
man.
definitely tough. But the issue that I ran into over there was when my wife and kids also moved. I'm from Pakistan. I'm from Karachi, man. Karachi is a huge city where you have way too many people and way too many food options. And then I lived in Houston, same situation. And then I'm going to Eldorado, Arkansas, where there is one restaurant that you can get some desi food. And the town's population is 19,000 people. It was a
Right.
huge culture shock for me. And around the same time as that was happening, I had applied to multiple different companies, and a recruiter from my current employer reached out and said, "Hey, we've got a pricing analyst role open. Would you be interested?" So I'm open to having a conversation. And that's my standing line. I'm always open to having a conversation. Because what's the worst that's going to happen? It's not going to work. It's not going to work. But best case scenario, it might work real well. So I had a conversation with them. I still remember there was my wife and kids were also there. There's a school that's about half a mile or a mile away from the office in Eldorado. I remember I had the interview scheduled for 1 p.m. I thought it's a phone interview, as we had discussed. He's going to call you. He's just going to call you on Zoom because he can track it and all that. I remember I drove to and I parked behind that school in my wife's car, and I turned on the Zoom call and I'm starting to have this interview. And all of a sudden, the hiring manager turns his video on. And I'm holding my head at that point because I had not shaved. I still had a scruffy look. My hair looked long and I was wearing a polo shirt. I wasn't expecting, I was very unprepared for this. And the problem I was running into was my wife's car had Android Auto, so it would auto connect to her car. So when I'm connected, I'm like, the voice isn't working and this and that. So I remember sitting in that car for an hour. The car had to be turned off so that I wasn't having the issue with Android Auto Connect. I looked like a mess, but I had a great conversation. And I think the thing that got the hiring manager comfortable with me was the fact that I wasn't making things up. I told him what I told him I knew, and that's all that I knew. He asked me about some things that I didn't know, and I told him straight up. I said, I don't know. I don't know this. I don't know this, but I'm open to learning about it. If you want me to learn before, I'll learn it before. But if you have someone who you think could give me a better understanding of this, I am definitely open to having a conversation with them to learn more. And this was a Tuesday, and he said, Thursday morning, you're going to talk to my supervisor, and if he's good with it, we'll extend an offer. Because I'm good with it. All right, Thursday comes and goes, nothing. Friday morning comes and goes, still nothing. And I'm at lunchtime, I pick up my phone and I see, oh crap, I have a voicemail. I listen to the voicemail, and it's the recruiter. She says, look, they're saying they don't need you to meet with the senior manager. They're good with you. They want to extend you an offer. Give me a call. So I gave them a call and they gave me the offer, and I was supposed to start May 6th, but background checks and all take time, of course. So then June 6th is when I started. But I remember after that call, I told my wife and we started packing up the apartment, and in about 2 weeks, we moved back to Houston, and then I would do the same thing again. And I had the apartment for another week. And then after that week, I finally got my start date and everything from my current employer. And that's when I put my 2 weeks notice in. And I remember I drove and I would drive and stay in a hotel in El Dorado and then drive back. So it was a tough experience, but it was definitely a learning experience. Those 6-hour drives, audiobooks were my best friends.